Welcome Atlantic staff writer McKay Coppins.
Early in the pandemic, a handful of the nation's governors imposed strict shutdown orders, closing schools and businesses to stop the spread of the coronavirus. These orders have since been rolled back as those states are recovering. One of those early actors was Republican Larry Hogan, the governor of Maryland. Governor Hogan, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, so we have people watching from all over the world. Could you start by just giving us the latest on the coronavirus in Maryland? How are things going in your state?
Well, thanks to our early and aggressive actions and thanks to the people of Maryland being so diligent, we're really doing very well. We've continued to have steadily declining numbers, and we're down to about 2.5% positivity rate. Our cases per 100,000 is dropping. Our hospitalizations are down. Our deaths are down. And, you know, this virus is by no means behind us, and we continue to stay vigilant. But we're very pleased with where we are now, and we're down in much better shape than many of our neighbors and many of my fellow governors across the country. So we're going to continue to work to keep it that way.
Are you worried, as a lot of public health experts and government officials are, about this fall and especially this winter, where we're going to be contending with both the coronavirus and the seasonal flu? How are you preparing for that?
Well, it's a big concern, and I know that Dr. Fauci and a number of other, really smart public health experts are concerned. Many of we have a coronavirus recovery task force made up of some of the smartest epidemiologists and public health doctors and scientists here in our state of Maryland. We're all concerned, and we're looking at the confluence when it gets colder and more people are inside. When we have the confluence of the flu with the COVID-19. So we're working very hard on it. We've now switched over in our Maryland lab to testing that can do both the test for the flu and for COVID. We've been working on rapid antigen testing, and we're going to continue to work for a safe and effective reopening while really staying concerned about how things might change in the fall.
One of the most striking things about the coronavirus response has been the lack of kind of a cohesive federal response, right? To a certain degree, it's been 50 different approaches in 50 different states. How has the pandemic changed the relationship, in your view, between the states and the federal government?
Well, it's been an interesting challenge for all of us at the federal, state, and local level. I had an interesting perspective on this because I had the honor of chairing the nation's governors during this pandemic as head of the National Governors Association. So I had to work very closely with the White House and the cabinet, along with all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle all across the country. And there are certain things that the federal government does really well, and those of us in the states, we were in different situations. We all took different actions, but it was a bit of a patchwork. But I can say one of the things I'm most proud of is how well the governors, really across America, both Democrats and Republicans, really stepped up and led on this crisis, and how well we worked together. It was really a collaborative, nonpartisan kind of an effort. And we try to work as best we could with our federal partners and our local leaders as well.
Do you think this was the ideal situation, though? Would it have been easier for you as a governor if there had been a more kind of concerted and coherent response and guidelines from the federal government?
Well, I was an early critic, coming up and talking about when I thought things were not happening at the federal level. I think they have dramatically improved their response in many ways. But at the beginning of the crisis, every state was kind of on their own with trying to track down desperately needed PPE and testing supplies, and in a very constrained market. We had 50 states competing against one another, competing against the federal government, and competing with other countries around the world. And it was a crazy situation that we had to contend with. But there have been many improvements since then, and we pushed, the Governor's Association pushed for the utilization of the Defense Production Act. We pushed for more and more assistance from the federal government on PPE and testing, and I think we've made some improvements since then, but there's no question, I think we could have done things better in the early stages of this crisis, no doubt about that.
From where you're sitting, when do you think things will return to a pre-pandemic normal or something, resembling that? That is kind of the question that everyone has. Probably most of your constituents are wondering about. Well, what is the timeline that you have in your mind?
Well, I think everybody in America probably has that same question, and quite frankly, I don't think we know the answers, but I think we're not going to we're all trying to get back to normal as much as we possibly can. But we want to do so in a safe way without seeing the spikes that you were talking about that we're concerned about in the fall. But I don't think we're really going to get back to normal until we can get widespread rapid testing, which we are working very well with a number of our colleagues and with the federal government and governors across the country, and until we get a vaccine. And I'm proud that I think Operation Warp Speed has been really helping to invest in a number of biopharma companies who are making real progress. We have 40 different companies and/or universities in my state of Maryland who are working on that. We had a big announcement today at one of those companies, Novavax, that is in phase 2, about to start phase 3 trials on a vaccine. And that's really what it's going to take, is widespread vaccines and rapid testing to enable us to get our economy back on track and kids back in schools and universities and have people feel a real sense of normalcy.
Are you concerned that you might struggle to get a critical mass of people to take the vaccine? What would be your message to your constituents who are reluctant or unsure of the vaccine? Polls show that a lot of people are not sure that they will take it.
Well, it's going to be an important issue. I mean, really, the only way we're going to protect ourselves is with a safe vaccine that works, and that's why there's so many companies in our state and across America and around the world that are working so hard on this. And we certainly don't want to rush anything. We want to get it done as quickly as possible, but we want to do it in a safe way that people trust the process. And we're going to do everything we can to encourage people to get vaccinated. I understand there's a lot of concern and hesitation on the parts of some people, but I think most people in America, and certainly most people in our state, are going to want to be vaccinated and keep themselves safe.
I don't think we can neglect the fact that we are just weeks away from an election. And you have kind of an interesting role as a Republican governor who's one of relatively few Republican officials who's been willing to break ranks with this president from time to time to criticize his policies where you think it's appropriate. Your record in Maryland shows that you've had unique success for a Republican in winning support from not just independents and Republicans, but also Democrats, African American voters. You kind of are doing something that your party has struggled to do for a long time. Do you have any advice for President Trump as he finishes these last few weeks of the election and kind of tries to make his closing argument? What would you say to him? What would your advice be?
Well, I'm not sure President Trump really is going to take a lot of advice from me, but I've given quite a bit of advice over the past 4 years. Much of it wasn't really followed, but you're right. I believe our party needs to do a much better job of reaching out away from just the base that the president has been doing a good job of appealing to, but reaching across the aisle and trying to have a message that talks to people in the middle. Like most people in America have their minds made up. They're very strongly on one side or the other, but this election is going to be decided by those people in the middle, and those independents and discerning Democrats and those Republicans who are currently not pleased with the president. And both candidates really have to go after and make their case over the next few weeks. But I think it's important for our party to do a better job, as we have done here in the bluest state in America, of winning over and talking to folks that maybe that the president hasn't been really speaking to.
Are you worried about the efforts, the things that the president has said in recent days and weeks that would sow, doubt about the legitimacy of this election? We're obviously in an unprecedented situation with an election during a pandemic. Are you concerned that what he's been saying about mail-in voting, for example, is going to create kind of a crisis of legitimacy around the election?
Well, I think it's very dangerous for the president to use some of the rhetoric he's been using lately about questioning the trust in the election, having people be concerned about. We've been doing mail-in voting, absentee voting here in Maryland for 20-some years. We're sending out ballot applications to every single voter. It's worked very well, but I'm just concerned about some of the president's comments about that he just have made in the past few days. All of us want to see a free and fair election. It's the most important thing. It's bigger than any one person. It's bigger than the president. It's the most important thing to everybody in America to make sure that we can believe in our democratic process. And I think we all have to work to make sure the election is conducted fairly, that everyone's vote is cast and heard and counted properly. And I don't think it's helpful to make people concerned about that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. As a state leader, what are you doing to make sure that the integrity of the election is sound, that the election is fair, and are these comments by the president making that job more difficult?
Well, it's a difficult job, but I think governors across the country are working hard to make sure that the elections are conducted fairly in every state, and that but there are definitely challenges in the middle of this COVID crisis, and we're trying to encourage people to vote by mail if they're able to, and that's the way they want to vote. We also have 8 days of early voting. We've got voting centers, so we're encouraging people to take advantage of that. And if they feel that they want to go cast their vote on Election Day, we're going to be able to do that in our state safely as well. But we're encouraging people to vote at off-peak times because we don't want to have a crowded polling places. And we're going to, the election, the State Board of Elections is completely independent of the governor, which is the way it should be to ensure fair elections. But we're pushing to provide as much help as we can to them, and we're pushing them to make sure that they're doing everything possible to ensure that every single vote is counted and that we have faith in the results of the election.
As you look forward, even beyond this election, do you see, I know you talk a lot about, you just mentioned the Republican Party needing to reach out to new voters. We've gone through a period where the Republican Party seems to be moving in the opposite direction, at least at the national level. How much hope do you have that the party will drift back in your direction? I mean, what is it going to take for the party to revise its approach to people of color, to women, to younger voters? It seems like it's more than just a few people like you speaking out. It'll take some structural changes, right?
Well, I think that regardless of what happens in the election in November, that the Republican Party, we're going to have to do some soul searching and take a look at what direction we're going to head. And I think that's going to be an interesting debate that we have. But you can't continue to win national elections and to be a competitive party if you're alienating, more and more people. And I've made a tremendous effort here in Maryland we've won suburban women and minority voters and won over Democrats and independents. And, successful politics is about addition and multiplication, not subtraction and division. And you've got to find a way to talk to people and listen to people and let them know that you're concerned and that you care about all of them, and you're going to try to do your best to solve the problems. And I think the party has a choice. So we're going to be at a crossroads. Are we going to continue in the direction we've been? Is it going to be the party of Donald Trump, or are we going to return to a more traditional Republican Party? And I'm hoping to be a part of that conversation after November.
Governor Larry Hogan, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate being with you. Thanks.